Hi, welcome. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel once again. If this is your first time here, I hope that you find something that interests you, that keeps your attention, and helps your mind escape for a little while. I have plenty on my channel to keep you entertained. I have concerts, I have true crime, I have substance abuse, and I have life skills that just about anybody. First and foremost, I'd like to say that most of the information that is stated here is my opinion, and the situations that we discuss are alleged, even though we may give scientific data or scientific information that will assist you to understand the criminal aspect better. So, at the end, if you like, or through the live stream, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends about the channel, because hopefully we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to touch on more criminal acts, how to define it, how to understand it, how to break down the evidence and everything that goes along with it. So, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to my subscribers. Happy Wednesday to the people that are watching. Hope that you guys are having a wonderful week so far. You know, I did a poll, and I'm going to show it to you guys right now because there's a reason why I chose this poll today. Okay. It's on my community tab, so if you can't see it right here very good, you can go to my community tab after I describe it and see what it says. It says, "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all that showed up in chat and interacted with your questions and input last night. Always appreciate it. Keep coming back. You're always welcome. Bruno Pelicano, that is Sergeant Friday. Thank you for co-hosting last night. Always full of knowledge and good insight." Okay, the question that I asked you guys, if you were to protect your home against any criminal act, what would you use? Granted, only 5 people voted. 40% said a dog, aggressive. 40% said a gun. 20% said a knife. 0% said 911. So, since 0% said 911, how can we possibly get on to somebody who lived at the 1122 King Road house and failed to call 911? This is just logic. This is a poll. This is what you voted on. I didn't vote on this. And you say, well, that's a trick. That's a trick. No, it's not a trick. It's an actual poll. If you would have used 911 at any time to protect your home, one person would have put that they used 911. But seeing that none of the 5 would use 911, this shows me that how can you be so critical of the survivor roommates who failed to call 911 if none of you in this poll would even use it to protect your home? It says, if you were to protect your home against any criminal act, what would you use? Pretty simple, right? But after the fact, not one person chose 911. So I just wanted to show you that to kind of prove a point as far as how quickly our thought process goes to other things. So if none of you who voted chose 911, I don't know what to tell you. I myself would probably use one of those choices plus 911. I didn't say you could only choose one. I said which one would you use to protect your home. I would probably use 911 first, honestly, and then I use whatever I had to do. Because you know what? When it comes to criminal acts, you have to make sure that you're within the law to protect yourself so that you don't break the law and end up in handcuffs yourself, if that makes any sense. And we'll go into this a little later. But tonight, the topic that I chose, it says Idaho 4, the tires are the missing piece. I haven't really heard this discussed in other creators' um, lives or streams, so I wanted to deep dive into this a little bit. I got some information. I got a short video, and I got a news article that hopefully I'll be able to discuss. And once people start coming in the chat and they start initiating communication with each other, then we'll have other questions, hopefully. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and start. Let me pull up the first article that I have. Because you know what? You just never know if this is indeed going to be a missing piece in the case. It could always be a missing piece. Let me take myself down off the stage. That way we've got a little bit more room to work here. Let me make it just a little bigger. Okay, I hope that y'all can see this. If not, I'm reading it to you so you'll be able to understand it. It says how it's done, footwear and tire track examination. The reason that I chose this is because, the latent footprint and the tire track that were located out front of the 1122 King Road house. And I'll be able to show a little bit about that here in a second. But let me go ahead and read this so that you can understand it. It says footwear and track can be deposited on almost any surface, from paper to the human body. Prints are divided into three types: visible, plastic, and latent. A visible print is a transfer of material from the shoe or the tire to the surface. This type can be seen by the naked eye without additional aids. For example, bloody shoe prints left on flooring or tracks left by muddy tires or on a driveway. So let's look at that. You see that picture, you see a bloody footprint, right? A bloody shoe print. So this would not be a latent print, it would be a visible print. Okay? So bloody footprints are visible on the flooring, courtesy of John Black, Ron Smith, and Associates. So that's a visible print. That's what that's called. A plastic print is a three-dimensional impression left on a soft surface. This includes shoe or tire tracks left in sand, mud, or snow. So this is a plastic shoe print left in the sand, courtesy of Aubrey Askins, Tacoma Police Department. So look at that shoe print. Many times people get these things confused. Well, you can see this, but it's not visible. It's not considered a visible print. So that's why I'm going over this. That way you don't get these things confused to the point where you hear about it and you still think that they mean something else. A latent print is what we've heard about in this 1122 murder investigation. And this is what it says. A latent print is one that is not readily visible to the naked eye. This type is created through static charges between the sole or the tread, and the surface. Examiners or investigators use powders, chemicals, or alternative light sources to find these prints. Examples include shoe print detected on a tile or hardwood floor, windowsill or metal counter, or the track detected on road surfaces, driveways, or sidewalks. So those are areas where these latent prints can be detected. Tile, hardwood floor, windowsill, metal counter, tire track detected on road surfaces, driveways, or sidewalks. So they're able to pull up latent prints that are not visible to the naked eye. They're created through static charges between the sole or the tread and the surface. So they use special material to bring these up. And as you all know who'd been following this case, there was hardwood floors in that house. So the latent shoe print that they found was one right outside Dylan's door. And if I'm correct, it was the shape of diamonds, which are consistent with a Vans shoe. Dust impressions left on a masonite surface, illuminated with oblique lighting, courtesy of Scott Campbell, Ron Smith, and Associates. So this was on a laminate or masonite surface. So this could have been a countertop or something of that nature. Dusted for it, and this is what came up. How samples are created. Examiners use several methods for collecting footwear and tire track evidence depending on the type of impression found. For impressions in soil, snow, or other soft surfaces, casting is the most commonly used collection method. So making a cast out of the print. For imprints, examiners generally try to collect the entire object containing the imprint, such as a whole sheet of paper or cardboard with a shoe print. When that is not possible, for instance, if the print is on a bank counter, the examiner would use a lifting technique to transfer the imprint to a medium that can be sent to the laboratory. So do you see how they brought up the imprint right here? How it's almost three-dimensional. Not three-dimensional, 3D. It's very It says cast or created a footwear impression to preserve them and allow for comparison and analysis. So this is a cast. So if they found any shoe prints that we haven't been told about and they made cast on them, these are some of the images that you'll see in the trial. As with any evidence found at a crime scene, shoe prints and tire tracks must be properly documented, collected, and preserved in order to maintain the integrity of the evidence. Impression evidence is easily damaged, so steps must be taken to avoid damage to the evidence. This includes securing and documenting the scene prior to collecting any evidence. In the case of the impression evidence, general photographs of the evidence location in relation to the rest of the scene are taken along with the high-resolution images of the individual imprint or impressions. Examiners may use alternate light sources or chemical enhancers to capture as much detail as possible, especially with latent imprints. So we were told about the latent print. So it's telling you how they use it, how they get the latent print, what they use, and we're going to see other other pages that document these things. I'm just showing you right now the proper procedure. Property photographing impressions is crucial. Since there's only a slight difference between different shoe sizes, if the photographs are not taken at a 90-degree angle to the impression, then the true size cannot be produced in order to compare the actual shoe. So did you hear that? Other than the fucking dog barking right now. I swear. If the photographs are not taken at a 90-degree angle to the impression, then the true size cannot be produced in order to capture the actual shoe. Wherever possible, impression evidence is collected as in submitted to the laboratory for examination. For shoe prints and tire tracks that cannot be picked up, various lifting techniques are used to recover that evidence. These include adhesive lifter, a heavy coating of adhesive lifts the imprint from the smooth, non-delicate surfaces such as the hardwood floors, metal counters, etc. It is usually used in conjunction with fingerprint powders. So this is what they would use to lift the imprint from a smooth, non-delicate surface, such as a hardwood floor or a tile floor. So chances are they use this to lift the latent shoe print. Gelatin lifter, a sheet of rubber with a low adhesive gelatin layer on one side that can lift prints from almost any surface, including porous, rough, curved, or textured surfaces. It's less tacky and more flexible than an adhesive lifter, showing it to pick up a dusty shoe print on a cardboard box, for example, but not tear the surface of the box. So this can be used to lift prints on other areas and not destroy whatever is trying to lift it off of. Electronic dust print lifting device, a tool that electrostatically charges particles within dust or light soil, which are then attracted and bonded to a lifting film. This method is the best for collecting dry or dusty residue impressions on almost any surface, even the skin of a cadaver. So this is a special machine that is used to lift prints off a cadaver. Any plastic or three-dimensional footwear or tire impressions can be collected by casting. Casting uses a powdered stone material such as dental stone that can't be mixed with water and poured into the impression. When it dries, this method creates a three-dimensional model of the impression. Imprints and impressions may be further processed to enhance or bring out additional minute details. For example, a digital enhancement program such as Adobe Photoshop can be used to improve the quality of a photographed tire track. Fingerprint powders and chemical stains or dyes can enhance the image color and increase the contrast against the background. This enables lifted or casted evidence to be photographed or scanned. So if you look at this is a faint bloody shoe print on linoleum. This is enhanced by treatment with a chemical, Blue Star, to allow a more detailed photograph to be taken of the evidence, courtesy of Eric Savicki, Boston PD. So that's interesting. This is a faint bloody shoe print. So if there was any bloody shoe prints in that house, chances are they'd have lifted the photograph with the bloody shoe print on it and casted a chemical for more detail on the photograph. Comparison examples are usually taken from suspect or suspect vehicles. Shoe samples should be packaged to avoid cross-contamination, and tire samples should remain on the vehicle. Well, seeing that the vehicle wasn't available for another month, imagine the wear and tear on the tire if he drove around a lot. If he hit any curbs or, any kind of damage to the tire, they would definitely not be the same tire print that there would have been at 1122 King Road outside of the house. This says a reference print from a tire is captured by inking the tire and driving over paper. So I'm certain, not 100% certain, but I'm certain that once they got the car, they probably did this technique. They probably inked the tire and drove over the surface of paper. Who conducts the analysis? Evaluation, comparison of impression evidence should be performed by a well-trained footwear and track examiner. Usually these professionals have received extensive training on footwear and tire manufacturing. So they're able to perform these things. Detection, documentation, photography, and collection of imprints and impressions occur in relation to crime scenes in many types. The analysis of impression evidence is typically performed at a public crime laboratory or a private laboratory by experienced examiners. So the tools and the technique that are used during the examination and comparison, examiners use tools such as dividers, calipers, special lighting, and low magnification. Examiners measure the various elements within the tread design as well as the length and width of the impressions, and then compare these measurements to what is seen in the crime scene print or the impressions. Low magnification and special lighting are sometimes used to determine if various characteristics are accidental or something that was created during the manufacturing process. So think about this a little bit. So they're in front of the 1122 King Road house. They see the tire print that were left on the asphalt of a vehicle that took off at a high rate of speed. So these investigators and examiners would be out there taking measurements. Let me show you. They'll be taking measurements of the tire prints. Let me show you a picture that I retrieved today of the actual location and the tire prints that they would have been looking at. Here we go. So these skid marks right here, if you don't know the area, this is King Road, this is Queen Road. So these, amongst any others, skid marks or tire prints, see there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one. There were some up here that I remember seeing another photo. Let's see, I don't know. I remember seeing another photo of that. I'm not certain if it's going to be on this. No, this looks just like they're just telling you about the crime. So that's what they would be dusting on these windowsills. Well, dusting for prints, any kind of shoe prints. This obviously is upstairs. This is Kaylee's room, I think. But they would definitely be doing it on the back concrete, looking for shoe prints. Any kind of fingerprints on these. Definitely, I'm pretty sure this area right here was looked really deeply into with lighting, with some of the chemicals that I outlined, to show any kind of footprints, any kind of shoe print that might have been there. But what I'm more interested in tonight is the tire prints. Because are the tire prints going to be the missing piece of information that ties everything together? Because they're so certain that they had a white Elantra and everything that you've heard about the white Elantra. See, here's a machine right here that they were just talking about, and there's a machine right there that they're able to see. This is not, I don't believe that you can cast these on asphalt. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that you can. I think that they're going to have to take photographs, measurements, and you might be able to put some kind of chemical that we described, the adhesive maybe, and lift the tire print from that, but I'm not for certain. So this would document what kind of vehicle, even if it wasn't 2011, 2013, or 2015 to 17 Elantra, whichever one you want to go with. This would definitely let you know which vehicle made these kind of marks. Was it a vehicle that was at the house that lived there, or was it a vehicle that was taking off at a high rate of speed? I hope that makes sense to you guys. It shows there's 5 people watching this. If there's any of you that want to say hi in chat, please pop in there and say hello. I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. It's a very weird feeling because I'm used to talking to somebody on panel, or there's usually somebody in the chat. So if any of you 5 people that are watching want to say hello in the chat, please do so. As I'm saying, with these tire marks, you'll have to focus on which areas of this road actually documented the tire mark that were on the Elantra, because that is the vehicle that is mentioned in the PCA. That is the vehicle that was spoken on in the PCA. So that is why it's so important that this piece of evidence is looked into. Nobody really talks about this. They talk about everything else. They talk about the car. They talk about, I heard my friend Jeff today. He did a good video on the sounds of the vehicle that they passed through Queen Road those 4 times. And if you could hear the same engine type, which you can, and the trunk being shut, which of course you can hear the trunk in the Linda Lane footage. But all that is intriguing. And this is more physical evidence right here because it's visible. You can see it. This is not a latent tire print. This is a visible tire print. Okay, so that's what I want you to focus on whenever you're listening to whether it's visible, whether it's latent. That's the difference. Visible is something that you can see. The latent is the static that is created to bring up the form on tile or on hardwood floors or other areas. Okay, let's take that one off the screen because I feel that I've already spoke on that one enough. Let's go ahead and get to another one that's going to describe it a little different. It's called tire and shoe evidence. This says prints. Shoes and tires leave behind print that can be examined by investigators. That's what we were just talking about. The imprints or expressions can be captured to a suspect's shoe or vehicle's tire to determine if the shoe or tire is the same one that left the impression. And that's what we look to find out whenever you're processing certain things. You're processing different types of prints. Footwear and track prints are divided into 3 types. I just spoke on this: visible, plastic, or latent. So the tire print that I was just showing would not be plastic. They would not be latent. They would be visible. So when you're looking on that, try to remember what I showed at the very beginning, the 3 the three deviations of print that there are. Because if it's plastic, it's something that you're going to be able to see. The example that they gave is the footprint in the sand. That would have been plastic. The visible is this one right here that they show. The blood prints on the concrete. So the visible prints involve a transfer of material from the tire or shoe to the surface. For example, a bloody shoe print or tracks from muddy tires on cement. Those are visible prints. Okay? Hello, Miss Anonymous. Evening. Thank you for being in our chat. Or my chat. I don't know why I said our, but thank you for being in the chat. It's essentially our chat since you're sharing the live with me. It's our chat right now, I guess, until more people come in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So the blood on the bottom of the shoes leaves a visible print, which involved the transfer of material, in this case, blood. So look at these bloody prints. Now, if these were cleaned up and it looked like there was nothing here, then you would probably evoke some kind of chemical to see if it left a latent print. But, like I said, that is a static phenomenon that is left on the latent print. And hopefully it identifies it here because I forgot exactly what it said. So I'll go ahead and read it again, or I'll go back to the other web page. It said latent prints are not readily visible to the naked eye. It's like you can't see them. But look at this book. You can't see that there's a print right there. But once the static charges between the sole or the tread and the surface happen, powders, chemicals, or alternate light sources are used to find these prints. So these three things: powders, chemicals, or alternative light. So a static charge between the sole or the tread and the surface. So in this case, it would have been the book. And the tread of the shoe created static charge. And you can see this by powders, chemicals, or alternative light. So this is how they found a latent print next to Dylan's door. Many people say, no, they found that with black light, or they found it with this, or they found it with that. Well, that could be right. Alternative light source. Nobody knows exactly what alternative light source they use. So these people are right. Powders, chemicals, or alternative light. So there's the latent print. That's how you look for latent print. It says footwear impression enhancement with fingerprint powder. The top. A footwear impression was found on the cover of a magazine, but it was barely visible. The bottom. The impression was dusted with black fingerprint powder to improve visibility. Image by Zalman 992 is a licensed under CCO. So they dusted this with black fingerprint powder to be able to pull it up to see it. Okay, so we'll go on. It says shoe prints and tracks are being left behind even when the soles may appear clean. For this reason, it is important for investigators to establish a path of entry and exit to the scene and take care to advertently cover tracks left by the suspect with their own. So they walk in. You see these prints right here? There's one, and I'm sure there's one right here. Or right here. I can't really see them, but I see that one, and I see this one. But right here, you can't see anything. So If they were investigating that next morning or that next day or the day after or this and that and the other, and you're just walking over this hardwood floor, let's say this was a hardwood floor, you wouldn't be able to visually see this unless you shine some light on it, because maybe it wasn't bloody. So it wouldn't have been visible like this. It would have looked like this. You wouldn't be able to see it barely. So you dust it with fingerprint dust or some other powder or light source, which this is a light source, alternative light source. Or maybe you could have just turned on the overhead lights and these footprints would have just shown themselves. Like have you ever mopped a floor, a hardwood floor or a tile floor, and you walked over it while it was drying, but you can't see it once it dries, and then when you open the blinds or you turn on the lights, you see footprints like this? These would be latent prints because they don't have substance on them. These are visible because they have substance on them. So I'm sure there's a possibility that there was visible prints in that house if the murderer walked through some blood or other bodily fluids. But I'm pretty certain more of the prints that were probably recovered were latent. And you remember they were also trying to get prints off that kitchen window. There was like 3 investigators outside of that kitchen window looking at that windowsill. And we just talked about the windowsill as well. So you might not be able to see a shoe print of somebody climbing in that window, but you could see a little bit of damage if somebody was trying to get in that window and they scuffed the surface or they knocked off some paint. It says, it found at the scene visible and latent prints are collected in similar ways. If possible, the surface of the print is collected, it's submitted to the lab. This would be possible if the shoe print were on a rug or a piece of cardboard. In most cases, however, the examiner must use lifting technique to collect the print prior to sending it to the laboratory. Adhesive lifter used on non-delicate surface such as hardwood or tile. So they could have used this as well. Here he's using dust or powder and then the adhesive to lift the print onto the adhesive. They could also use super glue. They heat up the super glue. They where it's a gas, and then they throw it into an area that they want to lift some prints or something on. When it dries, you see the prints on the super glue, and it's kind of like this. You just peel it back and you get the prints. Like this, you'd be able to lift that shoe print onto the adhesive because this would be able to pick up the powder onto the adhesive. But you have to be very careful that you don't contaminate this with your own gloves, because if you've been touching other footprints and they get on the gloves and then you touch it with your tips, then you put other powdered footprints on this latent sheet. Hi Paula, how you doing? You said come in late, went back to beginning and catching up. Awesome. Glad you're here, Paula. Thank you for coming in tonight. We're talking about the differences between visible prints, latent prints, and plastic prints. This is my second page that I've been talking about. It says footwear impression is dusted with black powder to ensure it's visible. On the bottom, a clear adhesive sheet is placed over the print and then pulled up or lifted to create a copy of the impression. So this would be like the same thing that maybe some of us did when we were younger. We could have put our hands where it made a fingerprint and then got a piece of Scotch tape and went over after we dusted it off and went over and put the Scotch tape over the fingerprint where we thought it was and pulled it up and it would have been on the Scotch tape. I don't know if y'all did that, but I know some people that have done that before. Okay, let's get to the gelatin filler. This would be a sheet of rubber with low adhesive gelatin layer that can be used to lift prints from more delicate surfaces. So this is a shoe print. Obviously, it says top, a gelatin lift, a footwear impression. The bottom, the same gelatin lift lit with high intensity lighting. So they lift this print, put some high intensity lighting, and you can see even the most delicate details of this shoe. See how it's indented in there, how it's another layer of indentation, how it has distinctive grooves in there. The same thing here and here and here and here. So many times people wonder how they get certain things off of shoes. Well, this is telling you they put different aspects until they can pull up a definitive impression of what they're trying to find. Electrostatic dust print lifting device. The device electrostatically charges particles such as dust or light soil, which attracts them to a bonding and lifting film. So this is what the lifting device that's used in this. This is what it does. So dust or other, it says dust or light soil. Plastic prints. A plastic print is a three-dimensional impression left on a soft surface, such as sand, mud, or snow. So if you remember in those pictures where they're looking for the tire prints, there wasn't any snow yet. There wasn't any dirt other than in the driveway. They had some kind of black asphalt type covering over in the 1122 King Road driveway. So maybe they were looking for prints. So they would have been looking for plastic prints. I don't understand why they call them plastic prints, but it looks like they're lifted to form almost a plastic impression, so you can tell the width of the tire, the depth of the tire rubber, and any kind of special grooves that the tire might possess. Like this, it looks like it has some wear on the outside of the tire. So that would tell you that the vehicle probably has an alignment problem. But I'm no expert, so I'm just assuming, okay? Hopefully I'm not making an ass out of myself right now. It says plastic printer impressions can be collected by casting. In this method, a powdered stone material is mixed with water and poured into the impression. When it dries, it's lifted and packaged for transport to the lab. So this is a cast of stone material that's mixed with water and powder. It's poured into the impression, it's lifted and sent to the lab so that they can find the grooves. If you were just going to guess, okay? You in chat, I'm asking you. So here's an interactive portion of the live. If you were going to guess what kind of shoe this was, write down your answer. What kind of shoe is this? And based on your own knowledge of shoes, about what size would you say this was? And would you say this is the left shoe or the right shoe? Come on, let me see your answers. Y'all can hold off on the beginning stuff. You can go back and watch that later. So here's the question. What kind of shoe is this? Left or right shoe? And what size would you approximate this to be? Miss Anonymous? Paula? Anybody else? You want to take a guess at it? What size shoe? What kind of shoe? Left or right impression of the shoe? Okay, I guess we'll get to that when you get back, when you guys are able to do it. It says photographing the evidence. Prior to collecting prints via lifting or casting, sufficient photographs should be made of both the evidence in the scene, long range and mid range, as well as the high resolution images of the individual prints or impressions. Investigators must be sure to take photos of the tracks or prints at a 90-degree angle so the true size can be determined. A scale should also be included when photographing evidence. Alternative light sources or chemicals may be used to make prints more visible prior to photographing them. So, here's another question for you guys once you catch up to this part. If you were going to guess, looking at this print, what kind of shoe would you say this was? Or is it even a shoe? Is it the right or the left? And about what size print is this? This is a footprint under UV lighting. Executive session 420, welcome. You're able to answer the questions also. Here's the first question that I asked. Okay, I'm going to go back. What kind of shoe is this? What size is this? And is this the left or the right shoe? This one is casted. And the same question for this one. What type of shoe is this? Is it the left or the right? And about what size shoe print do you think that is? Anybody that's in chat can answer this. So you guys give me your best answers. There's no wrong answers. So when the investigators must be sure to take the photos of the tracks or print, they got to make sure it's at a 90-degree angle so that the true size can be determined. A scale should be included when photographing evidence. Hi, Yvonne. How are you doing? Thank you for answering that. You'd say left foot, size 13 boot. That would be the first one, right? Okay. So left, or maybe, or the one on, which one are you talking about? Some left foot. Okay. So you are talking about this one. This would be the left-footed shoe, right? And Yvonne said size 13. That looks like a big shoe, right? What do y'all think about this one? What kind of shoe is this? Is that the one that you were talking about, Yvonne, that it's a boot? Let me know, okay? It says, for another example, open this faint bloody shoe print from Forensic Simplified. We're not going to do that right now. It says, analyzing evidence. Ideally, the suspect's shoes or tires are submitted to the lab along with the collected evidence. Examiners will use the submitted shoes or tires to make impressions, which can be compared to the collected evidence. This is usually done by using transparency overlays or side-by-side comparisons. So if they're able to do side-by-side, they can lay these transparent images on top of each other to get to see if this is the shoe that they're looking for. Executive session said the first one looks like a right shoe, but the second looked like a left foot shoe. I agree with you. But I'm looking for a specific kind of shoe. You're saying this first one is a shoe and this one's a shoe. I'm going to go with, I believe this is a boot based on how close these, a work boot, how close these are. And then there's nothing in the middle. And then there's the back part. But I could be wrong. It could be a sneaker. This could be a sneaker also. They didn't really get much of it and the back. So, but the size, somebody said 13. So you're probably right about this being a 13. This is a big shoe. This one I would say would be about a 10.5 to 11. Paula says, thinking boot size 11. Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was thinking that is definitely a boot. And that's a cast of that boot, a plastic cast. And this is the laying over the shoes, the transparent pieces where they lay over them to see if they're identical. Now we're going to talk about some of the tools that are used whenever they do such a thing. It says, while toolmark examiners typically use compound microscopes, footwear and tire mark examiners use low magnification or special lighting. They may physically place the items side by side for comparison or place digital images side by side on a large computer. Calipers are used to collect precise measurements which provide a quantitative means of comparing prints. So this is a caliper. So they would be able to measure the size of the shoe, the tire print, the markings. A caliper fits around the inside of the object you're measuring. The hundredth place is determined by finding where the lines on the sliding portion align with the stationary component of the caliper. The jaws of the caliper could be placed into the tire treads or the sole of a shoe to measure different aspects of the diagram. So this is like diagramming. Let's say there's casings or something of that nature. You know, you could, something that's solid that you need to kind of see what size it is, that's what you would do. Class and individual characteristics. When investigators look at a print, they're seeking to identify both class and individual characteristics. Class characteristics originate from the manufacturing process. These can be further divided into general class characteristics, which are standards for every item, limited class characteristics, subclass characteristics. So if we look at this pair of shoes right here, these sneakers, they're unique in their own characteristics. It says these Nike Air Force Ones outsoles have the same general design features, but are from 3 different molds. Now, if you're looking at these just with the naked eye, chat, I want you to answer this question for me. Could you differentiate, just looking at those soles with your naked eye, based on your experience of just looking at shoes, could you tell the difference in any of those? It says they're the same Air Force Run, they're the same general design, but they're from three different molds. So looking at those soles, could you guys tell the difference? Let me make that a little bigger so that you can see that. Just looking at it with the naked eye. Because you're a crime scene investigators right now. We're investigating a crime. You're looking at actual evidence. And I want you to actually get used to looking at the evidence based on what you see rather than what you think it is. Executive says, not really, to be honest. Thank you for your honesty. Paula says she's behind 3 minutes. Why don't you catch up and then go back later on and see the rest of it? Because I'm going pretty slow so people can that are coming in late can kind of catch up, you know. So we're looking at these three characteristics of these shoes. They're Air Force Ones, general design, but they're from three different molds. So if we look at the first one, look at this first line. It has little bitty dots, all crumbled together. In the middle, it looks like it has two thin lines together. And then there's a break in the line right here. So if you look at the second one, it doesn't have those raised little dots. These are covered, so it's a flat looking dot surface. These lines are wider and they're deeper, and there's not a break right here like there is on this one. Can y'all see that? He said maybe the grooves are more worn out on some, but nothing else. I can't tell at all. Well, I'm diagramming or I'm kind of going over it for you guys. I know it's hard to see. And then the third one, there is no dots. They have like linear lines or there are dots, but they're bigger and they're spread out. The lines that were together in the first one, the skinny little lines, are no longer connected. They kind of are worn out and not there, and there's not a break in any of it in the middle. So that would be the differences. It said these differences are limited class characteristics. So if you were looking at these things, I mean, it'd be easier if you could actually see it. Let me give you the page so that you can pull this up if you want to look at this later on. Y'all can do so. Because I know it's hard to see on here. Maybe you could go back and look at this later on. It says wear on shoes or tires. Now we're getting to the good stuff. A wear is an individual characteristic that can yield much information to investigators. Wear characteristics include the pattern of wear and depth of the wear. For example, the wear on a particular brand of shoe will be different for each person based on the amount of time they have owned the shoe as well as how and where they walk. Okay. Have you ever noticed how... You're welcome, Yvonne. I think newer shoe to older left to right. I would believe so. I mean, there's a lot of wear and tear on the third pair to the right. I believe that you're correct. But have you ever known somebody who walks with the inside of their foot and you look at their shoe, and it's wore out more in the front of their shoe, or maybe they walk on the outside of their shoe and it's more wore out here, it would be almost like the same thing as a tire on a car. It would be like the person's alignment is off. Does that make sense? You know, somebody's alignment's off. Maybe they walk different. Maybe one leg's, I mean, it's been proven that one leg is longer than the other. So therefore, the wear and tear is going to be different. But look at these boots right here. They've been worn for quite a while. And even though the inside of both of them is pretty even, you can still see some differences. See, there's more visible definition on this boot than there is this boot. This one's been wore out. Can y'all see that? Paula says, shoes are like Yvonne says shoes are like fingerprints. You're very right. Paula says, I'm on my phone, so picture isn't big enough to get a good look. I'll be looking again when I'm on my laptop. Good deal. Because I really want y'all to see that, because I mean, if people present evidence to you, you have to understand, okay, well, this is what I'm looking at, because a lot of people don't really see differences unless they're told. And I don't want to be telling you what the difference is. I want you to understand the difference, if that makes sense. Like those boots are wore out. I mean, if you were to see these boots, if they were yours, you definitely know where the worn parts are, because once you put them on, it would be thinner in that area, and you would probably feel every rock and every sharp object on your walk. The ones underneath here, it looks like the wear and tear is mostly around the toe area right here on this one, and toward the heel area back here. It really doesn't look wore out. I mean, it looks a little worn. The yellow's kind of wore out of that one. The same on this one. The same right here toward the edge of this side. But definitely the toe area is wore out. The inside of the shoe is wore out. So if I was to guess, this person walks with the inside of their feet. Their toe and their heel is their consistent walk gait. It says, notice the wear patterns on these boots and sneakers. Both pair of shoes show significant wear on the inner pad of the front or the foot and the heel. But these wear patterns are different based on the shoe type and person who wore them. The wear on both pairs would be visible in a collected print. So if you put a print of these shoes, it says both pairs would be visible on a collected print. You'd be able to see both pair of shoes wear and tear identically on whatever shoe you were dusting or putting light to adhesive or something like that. In some cases, an investigator may be asked to submit shoes or tires of other individuals for exclusion purposes, such as from a cohabitant of a home or from a first responder to a crime scene, to make sure that what and where did this footprint impression come from. Okay, so many pairs of shoes have their trademark. It's another database that stored impressions from previous crime scenes and suspects. When a tire mark or shoe print is found, it can be compared to others already in the database using 4 criteria: pattern, size, damage, and wear, to determine if there is a match. I hope I'm not boring y'all to death. I still have 2 more slides to go. And we've already gone an hour into this. I hope that this is interesting to you guys, because it's quite interesting to me, because I want to know how they do this and how did they get the tire impression. If it's the tire impression from the Elantra, is it the tire impression from the 4Runner? The Range Rover? Is it from the Jeep? Is it from another vehicle that lives around there? So this will be able to give you the understanding. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. It won't let me on this page for some reason. Dang it. I'll read it to you. It said detection tools on something like a low pile carpet flooring, which is one of the worst surfaces for footprints. Forensic investigators can collect the dust impression using static filter lifter, which is a sheet of mylar that you place on top of the surface and you give it an electric charge, and the static electricity then raises the dust off of the surface. When you turn the sheet over, you got a footwear impression. If it's a dark floor, the dust will be a lighter color, therefore, so I'll be at a crime scene, I can just put the oblique lighting on the dark floor and enhance the white dust and photograph it from above and collect it that way through photography. I can look at it and sometimes I can say, yeah, I recognize that's a Converse or a Nike Air Force One or whatever. But if I don't recognize it, which is often because there's thousands of different styles, I can take the image, a photograph, or a print image, and I'll send it to the lab. Once the shoe is collected, I compare it to the crime scene impression. And there's using what you learn from Detective Adventure Interview. This is a test. Wow, I could give you a test right now. But I'm not going to because you can't really see this page. But I hope that you, if you want to go back and listen to it, and maybe you can find it on the internet, you can get the information from it. Let me go to the next slide. This is going to be a video, and hopefully it explains it, everything that I've just shown you. So hopefully it explains it a little better. Paula says, I don't know about walking, but when my husband drives or operates his machine, his right foot rolls out. The sole ends up thinner and often blows, just stitching on his right boot. Very true. Very true that would happen. So if you were going to take a footprint in your home, you would be able to determine, hey, that's my husband's footprint right there. Let's get to the tire marks.
You've probably seen it in movies. Tire tracks in the snow, in the mud, and dirt. They're left by a criminal at a crime scene, and an investigator is able to identify the suspect thanks, in part, to the tire tracks linking the suspect's car with the crime scene. How do investigators go about preserving this kind of evidence, and why is it important? This lesson goes over some of the important fundamentals behind this. Why bother with tire mark forensic investigation? Well, a lot of crimes, from burglaries and robberies to stalking and kidnapping, are committed by people who must have a means of getting to what will later be the crime scene. Vehicles provide not only a means by which a criminal gets to the crime scene, but also a means by which they can quickly escape from one. The vehicle also gives the criminal some security and secrecy. As a result, a crime scene or a nearby area may have tire marks that can help investigators zero in on a suspect. They might match the tire marks at a crime scene with those coming from a suspect's car. Tire marks thus help investigators eliminate or confirm a suspect. They are not, by themselves, definitive evidence that someone committed a crime. However, they may be a very big piece in the puzzle of solving a crime. Before you can examine tire impression evidence recovered from a crime scene and compare it to tires of a suspect's car, you need to document, recover, and preserve the tire impression evidence. There's a lot more that goes into this than you may think. Here are just some of the many important things to consider. As soon as you get to the crime scene, you must establish which areas may have tire marks that are of value to you. Keep in mind that oftentimes the important tire track evidence may be somewhere away from the crime scene area, in a location that isn't as obvious as you might think. For instance, a criminal might park several hundred feet away from the house he will be breaking into. Once you've established an area of interest, establish an outer perimeter in order to ensure.
Oh my goodness, are you serious? Well, enough of that. Sorry about that. But it was given some valuable information. Hopefully tomorrow I can log into that and then I'll add it to I'll add it to a stream or maybe the community page. Give me a number one if this is informative to you guys, and number two if it's boring you to death. Okay, there's some more footprints. Based on what you've learned, are these visible? Are they plastic? Or are they latent prints? They're visible prints. It says traceology is a discipline to develop scientific and technological tools to uncover, preserve, and examine traces to clarify situations and get an aid in the investigation and prevention of crime. Traces are classified as trace reflection, trace objects, and trace substances. Shoe marks and tire marks belong to the trace reflection group. The main principles of criminalistic theory, when applied to shoe and tire print inspection, are the outer structure of all shoes and tires is individual. The external structure of the object may be projected onto another object in the form of trace reflection. And the trace reflection is an inverted or mirror image of the object. So basically, what it's saying is when you step on the ground and you've stepped on some blood or some kind of material, and you put an impression, this is your individual impression. As somebody in the chat said, it's almost like your own fingerprint. That's what somebody in the chat says. You know, um, it's almost like your own fingerprint. It says footprints and tire tread impression can be used as forensic evidence as they create a unique pattern. Shoes and boots leave special marks and impression based on their brand, their style, and their size. Shoe and tracks can play an important role in the process of profiling suspects and witnesses in a crime scene investigation. One thing that I've talked about and I've had other people on my panel talk about, and I've talked about the Idaho4 case many a times. What I can tell you is this: people figure that these footprints that you see right here on this hardwood floor are probably what you saw in the house. I don't know. You don't know. The only people that know were the first people that saw the crime scene and the investigators. So let's say that they saw footprints in the house, because that was a hardwood floor that was in that house. It might have not been this kind of hardwood, but it was hardwood. So you would have been able to see these kind of prints if the suspected killer stepped in the blood. Yes or no? So if he stepped in the blood, if he stepped in any kind of liquid, he would have left footprints like this. So you're telling me that as bloody as it was, there was no footprints like this going from Xana and Ethan's room out the slider door, down the steps from Maddie and Kaylee, where they were, down the steps, out the slider door. So if we're gonna focus our attention on where we would be searching for this stuff, it would be what? The kitchen. If there was no bloody prints in any of those other areas that I just discussed, most of our focus should have been in the kitchen area because that would have been the area in which the killer would have came into through the slider. There would have been one time, and then obviously when he left. Those other areas would have had him going up once, down once, in once, out once. So it would have been the same, but I believe that there would have been more latent prints or visible prints in the kitchen. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And one thing that a lot of times isn't discussed is how about the stride of the killer? Like, let's say here's your left foot. Is your right foot going to be immediately right here? If he's 5 foot, what would they say? 5'11" or taller, then you better believe this individual has a large stride. 1 foot, and I'm sure the other foot would be way up here somewhere. It wouldn't have been a short stride. It would have been a long stride. If there were short strides, I don't know how I would explain that. Do you guys have any theories on that? If there were short strides, how do you explain that when you're told the individual that did the crime is 5'11" or taller? Anybody? Do you believe that this individual would have had short strides? I say no. Also, another thing, if he had long strides and we're looking at these visible prints, wouldn't you believe that there'd be more area of whether there was blood on it? There'd be more area of blood based on how he walked. If he was heavy footed or flat footed, there'd be probably a whole print like this because his foot is landing flat, right? So if he walks like that other shoe showed you, that boot, if he had wear and tear on one side, then you'd see it on the hardwood floor. They'd be able to enhance it on the, I'm going to call it Scotch tape, even though it's not Scotch tape, it's not packing tape, but that's what I think of when I see it. So when they pull it up with the dust and they put it on the Scotch tape, you're going to see the print and what area of the boot or sneaker or whatever the person was wearing. And it just came to me. And I don't know if y'all thought about this, but it just came to me talking about all this. Why would you go into a crime scene wearing a pair of Vans? Those shoes are not the most reliable shoes to stay on your feet, especially if you're in a scuffle. Wouldn't it be more applicable to wear a pair of boots? Like military boots or, hiking boots or, something that's going to stay on your feet. A pair of Vans to me, I would believe that, if somebody stepped on your foot, that'd be over. That'd be game over for you. But that's just my own, speculation right there. But, let's go with what we're talking about here. Image 1 says shoe marks are the most common type of evidence left at a crime scene. Forensic scientists use footprint analysis to gain important information during certain crime scene investigation. These include identifying a shoe manufacturer, model, and shoe size to help profile witnesses, suspects, and victims of a crime scene. Forensic scientists can try to identify the type of shoe or tire that made an impression through searchable databases compiled by the FBI and other agencies. With this information, researchers can research which retailers sell a particular shoe or which vehicles are equipped with a particular tire. This evidence can be then used to help determine whether a suspect was present at the crime scene or has excluded a person involved from the investigation. You know what I just thought of too? Maybe the killer did not wear the right size shoe. I don't know if the latent shoe print was the killer's shoe. If it was, then he was hobbling on one foot, because there was only one. Which side it was, whether it was left or right. Maybe the killer was wearing either smaller shoes or larger shoes. And how can you tell if a shoe is made for a male or a female? Or if it's a unisex shoe? Because there are differences. Female shoes are different than male shoes. And there's shoes that they make now that are unisex. There's male shoes that are unisex that females can get based on the narrowness of their feet or the wide width of their feet. So those are just some things to think about. Image number 2. The footprints left at the crime scene and the marks at the shoe of people with the incident can be investigated. At the same time, as an important part of the shoe analysis, it is the determination of the person's walking style with the soles of the shoes. If there is blood at the crime scene, it can often be traced and used in evidence in court. The basis of the shoe impression evidence is the identification of the source of the shoe impression taken from a crime scene. The process of reviewing shoe impression evidence takes into account class and identifying characteristics. More generally, shoe impressions are created when a surface is pressed or stamped, such as a floor or furniture, where the properties of the shoes are transferred to the surface. Duties of the forensic shoe inspector include verification, where an impression is to be matched with the suspect pressure, identification. Let's stop right there. A suspect's pressure. So you're telling me that you can potentially find out how much a person weighed based on their shoe impression. I guess that would be possible because the heavier a person weighed, the thicker the impression would be, I would think, because it would be pressing harder on the shoe than somebody who didn't weigh as much. Chat, what do y'all think? Y'all aren't talking to each other, so you aren't talking to me. So what do y'all think about this? I'm gonna take a minute to see what y'all think and then I'll continue on because this is the last slide that I have. Anybody want to come up to panel and talk with me? Don't have to show your face. Anybody in here? There's the link if you guys want to come up. Anybody. And we can talk about this. You don't have to turn the camera on. You can just talk to me. But I would believe that if somebody was to do a print, like if I walk through some mud or if I walk through some water or, a foreign substance of some sort, and I walked across somebody's tile floor, they'd be able to tell that I was a heavier individual based on the pressure of the print. Paula says, I saw someone do an interesting experiment. His theory was wearing booties over shoes. The closest steps were just like puddles. Very interesting. I'd like to see that. Because I've always thought that. I've always thought that if it was Brian, he wore surgical booties over possibly those, those sneakers that were really popular that they look like socks, but you can put your toes in them and people work out wearing those. They have soles on the bottom, like rubber soles, but they look like socks and you just slip them on. I I assumed that it would be one of those with some booties, some surgical booties over them. After 4 or 5 steps, the blood lightened up. The sole could be visible even with the booties on. Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. Okay, let's continue on. Identification. Matching the printed evidence to a large known set of prints, descriptive features, on the other hand, do not originate from the manufacturing process, but are incidental, unpredictable features resulting from the wearing of the shoe. This may include the impression of objects stuck to the outsole and markings on the outsole of the shoe due to cuts, nicks, dents, and scratches. And even though we're talking about shoes, guys, the same thing applies to tires. So I know that we haven't talked about tires a lot, but the same thing applies. That's what I want you to think about. This whole thing is just because we're talking about shoes mostly, shoes are usually rubber soles or plastic soles. Tires are rubber. So the same thing applied to a tire that would apply to a shoe. Footprints provide valuable forensic evidence. In many cases, it can be determined with certainty the shoe prints were made by a particular shoe out of all other shoes. So look at those visible prints right there. Many people believe, okay, let me read what you said. He also did an experiment with what DM could have and could not see and how much of DM the perp could see. That's interesting. I'd like to see that guy's experiments. So looking at this one right here, it's a visible shoe print. But many people would confuse this with a latent print because it's a print. Because they don't know the difference. We've talked about the differences. Okay, we talked about shoe prints enough. Let's get to the tire tracks. Tire mark can be also common marks found at a crime scene, such as shoe prints, but can also be found in snow, mud, sand, or even on a victim at a crime scene. These marks can be collected by photographing, casting, removing, and or removing clothing from the victim. Tire impressions are classified as pattern proof, as tire tread impressions leave a unique pattern behind them. Just as shoe impressions can help narrow down brand, style, and size, tire tracks have the ability to do the same. Alternative light sources and electrostatic removal dusting chemicals are used to display hidden shoe and tire tracks. So look at these tire tracks. Normal camera, this is what you'll see. A forensic smart tablet camera, look at the more intense area you can see, but you really can't see a lot more, I don't think. Forensic smart tablet camera, there you can actually see a lot more. If this was in the dirt, it was in mud, things of that nature. Um, I don't remember the name, but I will send it to you. I'm pretty sure he is a retired detective. Good deal. Thank you. It said there are different tire tracks. These friction marks refer to tire marks made by spinning or yawing vehicle, a vehicle acceleration, or a flat tire. Yaw. The direction marks. These tire marks are made by a tire that rotate parallel to the axle of the tank wheel and slide sideways, and also called side slip or critical speed friction marks. Now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. Slip marks. These tire impressions made by a lock wheel resulting from the application of the brakes. Pressure marks. The marks formed by rotating tire are called pressure marks. Scrub marks. These types of tire marks remain on a vehicle when a wheel is locked due to damage. So look at that image right there. So if the Elantra, almost said Solantra, if the Elantra was peeling out at 4 21 at a high rate of speed. Do you think it made friction marks, yaw marks, slip marks, pressure marks, or scrub marks? Let me read those again to you, and I want y'all to give me an answer. Friction marks are referred to the tire marks made by a spinning or yawing vehicle acceleration, or a flat tire. So when you have a flat tire, every time the tire catches, because it's like dum, 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 it catches. So it's leaving part of the tire mark. A vehicle acceleration. So if you peel out, part of the tire is going to be left at the seam. So that's friction marks. Yaw marks. These tire marks are made by a tire that rotates parallel to the axle of the tank wheel and slides sideways, and are also called side slip or critical speed friction marks. Slip marks, these are tire impressions made by a locked wheel resulting from the application of the brake. So that would mean that you hit your brakes really hard and your tires lock up and you start to slide. Pressure marks. Tire marks formed by the rotating tire are called pressure marks. These are generalized wear and tear marks, I guess. Scrub marks. These types of tires remain on a vehicle when a vehicle is locked due to damage. Is friction marks the same as burning rubber? Let me look and see. Friction. Yes. Like if you peel out, I would believe that would be a friction mark. Welcome, batshit crazy. Where have you been hiding all this time? Welcome to the chat. So there's the examples given. So at 421, the PCA. Okay, so you think they're friction mark, the one that Brian supposedly did at 421. He accelerated at a high rate of speed. So friction marks are what batshit crazy says. Here, tire tractor impression from the crime scene. The first category is a visible print, which is visible to the naked eye and can be collected by photography. The second, called plastic printing, almost like the shoes. 3D impression can be collected by casting. And then there's the final category is hidden prints that are invisible to the naked eye and are found on flat surfaces such as sidewalks, roads, or driveways. So this you would have to use electrostatic or gelatin lifting powder print removal device to be able to see these. So these right here would be visible prints, just like a shoe. I just realized I didn't get your live notice because I wasn't subscribed. I am now. Oh, well, welcome. Thank you for subscribing. So you look at these tire marks. At 421, he accelerated at a high rate of speed. So he's going from King Road around that corner, and supposedly that's where he left the tire marks. So he was at the top of the hill, so he accelerated and left tire marks at the top of the hill, and then regular impression marks. And then when he rounded that corner like this, they would be slip marks because his wheel would have been locking because he was braking. So those would have been all three different types of marks. The pressure mark would have been when he was rolling. The slip marks would have been when he braked to go around the corner. The friction marks would have been when he peeled out at the very beginning. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Let's keep going. Because different manufacturers produce different types of tire patterns, tread impressions can help narrow down the brand, style, and size. Tire impression can try to map through searchable databases that help an investigator identify criminal facts and evidence. It also helps to identify the perpetrator. So we're talking about an Elantra. So if we were going to look at these tires based on what I've shown you all tonight, we're going to gauge whether this is a visible, whether this is plastic. It isn't, because plastic would be in mud, snow, sand, and the others would be on a sidewalk or on asphalt or a driveway, something made of concrete. So if this was a concrete road, that would be, good grief, I'm getting tired. It would be the third tire impression. So plastic, visible, and they would be almost like latent, because that would be the same as the shoe. So these aren't latent prints because you can see them. Even though they're on a road, they can be pulled up, measured, and you can almost see the diagrams. You're going to take a picture of this. You're going to see what kind of things you can really see, kind of like this. What are the markings? What is the wear and tear? What is the brand of the tire? Is there any kind of area where you can see any nicks on the tire that is distinguishable to the front tire, the passenger side driver, or passenger side, the passenger back, or the driver's side back tire. And you're able to see, just like the shoes, what kind of impression it leaves. So I hope that you got something out of that. Is there any questions from you guys that maybe I could answer or clarify a little better? Because I basically learned this tonight, just like you guys. I learned the wording, I learned the impressions, and it's really interesting to me because, let me see if I can pull that picture up again that shows them looking at the crime scene, because that's the one area that I have never heard anybody talk about. They may have talked about it very briefly, but they really didn't talk about it to the extent where they went into detail. Jeff and I talked about what happens whenever you go around the corner. What happens when he supposedly went around the corner, and what you would have seen if he would have hit the trash cans. Let me see if I can find that picture. Here we go, right here. You see this picture right here? This is the picture that got me thinking, what did they get from that area? Did they get did they get any kind of information on whether it was an Elantra, whether it was some kind of other, um, what kind of other vehicle it could have been? You get what I'm saying? Was it visible to them? Whether it was a visible tire mark, whether it was latent or plastic? As we've learned tonight, none of these that look like this are plastic or latent, because you can see them. They're visible and they're kind of raised a little bit. Or not raised. Like if they would have been raised, like, I don't know. I can't really tell because this is a picture and I can't really raise the picture because it'll take me all over the place. But if there is any rubber attributes on these tire markings, it'll be able to identify, just like you would identify the sole on a shoe. You would be able to see, what it is, how far apart the tires are, and what kind of tires they are. Are they Michelins? Are they Bridgestones? Are they racing tires? Are they casual tires? Are they off-road tires? Things of that nature. And it'd be able to help catch who did it. Sometimes the tires can be the telling part of the evidence that nobody talks about, but could be the smoking gun. It would be more, it would place the individual there based on his tire marks on his tires, Paula says, the only talk I've heard on tire marks was some speculating they were previously. Apparently there was a TikTok video Xana did that they are visible in. I remember what TikTok video that is. Let me pull that up right quick. Y'all hold on a second. Let me get that video. I remember that video. It's where she's in her Steelers shirt and she's talking about where she's working. Let me see if I can find this. Give me a second, guys. I didn't realize there was a lot of females named Xana. I think I found it. I think it's this one.
Here at the University of Idaho, and I'm involved in a couple things down here, including Vandal Solutions. Last year I did Blues Properties. I was an associate with them, and I basically just worked with Blues Properties and did advertising for them, did sales events. I was an associate with the Blues Properties here, including Vandal Solutions. Last year I
Okay, there are some tire prints back there. There they are, right there. See them? Those are the tire prints. You're very right. I think investigators would have known if they were fresh or not. You're right. Yeah, I think for a marketing job or something, I only saw parts of it. I did notice tracks in what I saw. Yeah, that's it. Let me play the rest of it. She has a very distinctive voice.
Hi, my name is Xana Kernodle. I'm a marketing major here at the University of Idaho. And I'm involved in a couple things down here, including Vandal Solutions. Last year, I did Blues Properties. I was an associate with them. And I basically just worked with Blues Properties and did advertising for them, did sales events, etc. And this year, I'm doing sales. So I'm a sales associate. So basically, I just call people around Moscow, ask them if they're interested in our business, etc. But yeah, I'm a junior here, so it's really exciting. I love it at the University of Idaho, and I'm super excited to be in this marketing class because it's basically my major. And this is actually King Street, where I've lived the past 2 years, and I really like just hanging out with my friends all the time and being super involved in school events and everything else. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me, and I'm really excited to take on this course. Hi, my name is Xana.
Wow. That's so sad. That's so sad to see that. I mean, we didn't know these people, but just watching that, just sad. I was surprised with Maddie's phone so low for such a tiny young girl. Mine is also very low. One thing I noticed, did y'all see that white truck speed by? Good God. How many tire tracks would they have seen right there? You know what I mean? Like where that dumpster was, how many times do you think that dumpster's been plowed into by somebody rounding that corner? That big dumpster. Maddie's voice not found. Yeah, Maddie had a deeper voice. Let me share another video. I mean, I'm going to go a different direction right quick. I invited Sergeant Friday up. I don't know if he's going to come up, but we'll see. It's difficult to look for stuff while you're on live. Hope y'all are hanging in there. This is one of my favorite videos. I want to share it with you guys. It's really cool. And it kind of gives you an outline of the house because you're able to hear stuff, you're able to see things that you normally wouldn't be able to see. I know you've seen it already. But let's go ahead and watch this. And here we go.
God, it smells like dirty dick in here. Murphy, you've been a bad boy. Oh my God, it's 9:10. Guys, can anybody drop me to class? I'm fucking late for my meeting. I'm supposed to be there 10 minutes ago. Did anybody do their chores today? Fuck, I'm just gonna do it. Oh, shit, you guys. It's 8. Gotta go. Jake's calling. Oh, Jake's calling. Oh my God, I look horrid. Oh, Murphy, you look So you just get out of here. You seriously gotta get out of here. You're fucking stinking this shit out. Hey guys, I know I talk about myself a lot, but like, what would you guys do in my situation? Dana, where are you going? Yeah, I gotta go pull you out. Failed trauma already.
Does anyone do like a wine night? Like, let's just do a wine night.
Yo, is it okay if I have a party? Like just 3 or 4 people at most.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite videos of them all. I don't know what y'all think about that video, but it shows their mannerisms, how playful and how innocent, I guess, they were in that house. I mean, it kind of gives you a different perspective on who they were. I know they were probably just acting for the camera, but I don't see a bunch of drug addicts on camera right there. What do y'all think? Answer me in the chat. You see a bunch of drug addicts on that camera? Do you? Do you really see drug addicts right there? You know, do you see drug dealers? Do you see prostitutes? Do you see OnlyFans? I mean, you can tell a lot about a person's mannerisms, especially youngsters. You can I know I'm stretching here, but I'm trying to make a point. I don't know if y'all are getting it, but I don't really see what the negative aspect that people always point out. I don't get any sense any are involved with a drug cartel from watching that video. I don't either, Jeff. I don't either. I don't see that they're so deeply involved in drugs that was a motive. That's what I'm trying to say. Because you know what? I've been around drug addicts. I've been around drug addicts that use methamphetamine, that use cocaine, they use weed, they drink, they shoot up, all this stuff. And I can tell you, a hardcore drug addict is not going to have the ability to carry on as these I'm going to call them kids because they're kids to me, you know, that these kids apparently did in all their social aspects, you know. Is it possible there's some that hate law enforcement so much that they would rather throw these 4 victims under the bus? I don't know. They were so happy, I don't think they even drove while drunk, let alone heading the cartel seriously. Honestly, that's what angers me. You know, whenever people talk about the victims, and they are the victims, they're the ones whose story should be more important than the person that's on trial. And that's why I don't focus a lot more of my videos on him like I did in the very beginning, because I was trying to paint a profile on what kind of person he could or maybe couldn't be. But I'm trying to turn away and give the victims more credit than maybe more people give them. I mean, it's just so sad how they're painted and how they've been painted throughout this whole ordeal. Don't y'all agree? Press 1 if you agree. Press 2 if you disagree. Press 3 if you're unknown. But I believe, and I know talking to Sergeant Friday last night about that word, but it's hard for me to take it out of my vocabulary because that's a therapy word, and I say it so much all day long because you can't be talking in thought process. I mean, it's hard for you to say, I think this is what you're going through, because you don't know what the other person's going through, if that makes sense. So whenever I say I believe, it's a thought process that makes it rational in my head that these individuals were just college students trying to do the best they could to get through college, have as much fun, and make as many memories as possible and move on with their lives. And on November 13th, 2022, something tragic happened to all four of them. And press 4 if you feel like pressing the 4 key. I see what you did there, Jeff. I see what you did there. You want to come up, Jeff? Are you good in chat? But my point in saying what I'm saying, because I'm getting long-winded here, is I want it to be known that the victims didn't die in vain. You know, it appeared like they were lovable, carefree individuals that enjoyed life to the fullest. And for some reason, their character has been tainted through this whole process by people on YouTube, by mainstream media, you know, because for whatever reason, the more nefarious it is, the more it keeps people interested. I'm driving down the highway in the rain. I shouldn't even be chatting. This is true, my friend. This is very true. Okay, keep driving. Keep your eyes on the wheel. Keep your eyes on the road. But the rest of you in chat, don't you agree that their image has been tarnished by a lot of people who have apparently no qualms about saying all these things about these victims? They give the potential murderer more credit than they give the victims for losing their lives, you know? There's no way he could have killed them in that time frame. There's no way he could have done this. There's no way. Okay. I'm sure we'll find out in trial. I'm sure we will. But you're missing the point here. He didn't kill himself. He killed 4 people. It doesn't matter why he killed them. It doesn't matter what they were doing, how they were living. Let me tell you something. Even if they were the most lucrative drug dealers on that whole block, they didn't deserve to die. Not in that manner. They didn't deserve to lose their lives. They deserved the utmost respect for all the qualities that they had and the achievement that they had gained in their young lives. Some of them overcame obstacles that weren't even their fault. You know? Xana overcame obstacles that weren't even of her making. And she still thrived. Kaylee and Maddie, their friendship lasted since 6th grade. And they were doing the best they could in this world. Ethan, he was a triplet, loved by his family, loved by his brother, loved by his sister, and loved by many. But yet, people, since researching or investigating this case, want you to believe that these 4 were hardcore cartel drug addicts who were selling drugs so hard that they had to be shown a lesson. They had to be taken out because one of them was leaving and the other 3 just couldn't be trusted anymore with that level of drug dealing going on. Ridiculous. And Dylan was a drug dealer too because she knew some other people who were in that game in that town. And her boyfriend and this and that and the other. You just connect the dots and you watch too much TV and you say, well, this must be it because this is what I always see. If you're a drug dealer, then you must take out your enemies. You must take out those that are going to potentially snitch on you. Snitches get stitches, meaning that you take out people that are against you, that are not on your team. This is suburban America. Moscow, Idaho. It is not Chicago, Illinois in the hood, or Chinatown, or down along the Texas-Mexico border where they're fighting over territory. It is nowhere near any of that. But yet people want you to believe that Moscow, Idaho is about that life, and it is that hardcore there based on what they've uncovered through articles that they've read and let their imaginations go wild. I could be wrong, but I'll never say I don't know, because my intellect and my analytical thinking tells me that more often than not, the best scenario always wins out. And the best scenario of what Idaho looks like, especially Moscow, it doesn't look like a drug-infested, crime-ridden community. Is there crime there? I'm pretty certain there is. Is there things that happen? Is there things that people may get away with that they're never found out about? That happens anywhere and everywhere. But one thing for certain, if Brian's not the one, he's going to have enough appeals that eventually the police are going to find who did it. In time. That's why I'm focusing on the evidence rather than the killer or other speculations. That's why I decided to make this channel, to focus on evidence, to focus on educating people on the law process. You know? About the time I think it will get better, it actually gets worse. Every day I see creators I've never seen or heard of. To bringing up Jack's Driver, Dana's Mom, Steve Grub Truck, Corner Club. Yes, I know. I saw WSU Mom Kim on one creator's live the other day. They were talking about Dot. This creator is I'm not going to name them, but it's almost like they're going back and starting all over. I've done that, so I can't really throw anybody under the bus for that. I've done that, but I've done that in the aspect that I've gathered a piece of evidence and focused on that, if that makes sense. I'm not going through the whole process, going over the PCA and, everything that has already been done. Because there's been some good creators out there that have broken this stuff down where you can understand it, where you can, but they didn't dig deep enough into the law aspect of it, the evidence, how to identify the evidence, how to break down the evidence, things of that nature that I'm sure people have been wondering about, because instead of listening to somebody's perception of how things go, I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather be shown, hey, this is the real way that this is how it goes. That way you don't fall for false information. That way you don't fall for false narratives and things of that nature. We only know what we know. So if you're not willing to learn more than you know, then you're only going to repeat stuff that you hear, stuff that is a myth, and stuff that you believe. Until you challenge those and try to learn something different, that's all you'll really do. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get on my soapbox here. I really wish they would go away. I look back at things all the time, but I don't speculate on all the other people it could have been. Of course, I don't agree with that either. I mean, I don't agree with branching out on 6 degrees of separation, and if that causes me some subscribers because I'm not a speculative person, I hope you find a channel that entertains you better than mine did, because I'm not trying to rehash information that's already been given by other creators that did a great job at it, Kim, Dot, Brad, Dave, tired of all of them. They really don't focus on Dave a lot, but they do focus on Kim and Dot and Brad. You're right. Brad didn't get a lot of exposure even when she was out here. She's getting more exposure now than she did whenever she was on the Rory show. And I used to watch that channel. I used to watch all those people on that panel. And for a while there, I couldn't wait because they were always talking about, we're going to give you the receipts. We're going to show you one day how everything fit together. Well, that day never came. Rory went away. Brad went away. Tommy's still out there. Sergeant Friday's still out there, but he's not on any of the panels like that. Dago's still around. He's doing his thing on his channel. But there's that little group of people, they didn't ever show the receipts. And the receipt that we have now are suspicious in nature, where it appears that things weren't done the way they should have been done when people are looking for accountability, It's sad. It's really sad. I didn't even watch that Cyber Sleuth or whatever that show was, where everybody was talking about the creators that were on there, JLR, Bullhorn Betty, those type of people. I didn't even watch that because I don't even want those people on YouTube, because there's something about the presentation that I just can't get behind. It doesn't mean that my channel is better or my presentation is better. It just means it's something that I'm really not into, But I'm getting to the 2 hours and 10 minutes. Those of you that showed up in the chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. Those of you that showed up, and I think there's like 4 people in here. Those of you that aren't in chat, thank you so much for being here. Please keep coming back. Like I said, I'm going to keep presenting information. If not necessarily on this case, maybe we can go on another case that is a cold case, because I'd like to really talk about some cold cases that I've been looking into and really break down the evidence to see if we can not necessarily solve the case, but maybe we can get an impression on how a case really works, I think Brat was more TikTok. I never heard of her until some YouTubers started debunking people. Gotcha. And I respect the ones that have different opinions, that they have different channels, they have different theories, as long as it doesn't go to the extreme where it victimizes the victims all over again, or the families, or the friends of those people. Because we have to remember that there's people that are associated in that community that every time a creator puts something out there, they're either watching, somebody's watching, they tell them about it, they critique it, they maybe open a wound again because they've been placed in a negative light. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about Haley Dunn. She was a cheerleader. She was 13 years old. She went missing, I think, in 2012. Well, I currently live probably about 30 miles from where she lived, and where probably about 25 from where she was found eventually. Well, for that year and a half, um, there was nothing but speculation about the boyfriend, about the mom, who did it, this, that, and the other. Well, they eventually found her, I think, in 2015, 16. They found her remains by a lake that had been searched. Um, they arrested the boyfriend, they let him go, and currently there are no suspects. There's a lot of investigation, a lot of theories, a lot of this, that, and the other. And at the end, it's a cold case. Batshit Crazy says, I like watching anything cold case. Well, I'd like to go down that road. If you have any cold cases that you'd like to discuss on here, I'm all for it. I mean, I'm all for, being here for you guys so that we can look at things together. I mean, I've asked you in the community post and things of that nature. If you want me to discuss certain things, give me ideas because I don't want to rehash the same thing every day. And if you're only here for the Idaho thing, I'll still talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it in the extent where I'm going to just rehash old information like tonight. I was thinking about the tires. I was thinking about the friction marks, So I decided to look up tire marks and shoe marks and things of that nature, latent prints, hoping that I could give you guys a fresh look on something new. Um, Anyways, the Haley Dunn case is pretty much a cold case, even though they arrested the boyfriend. The mom's living in another town. She was never charged. The backdrop to that is the mom was a drug addict. The boyfriend was a drug addict. Mom was at work. 13-year-old cheerleader was left alone with the boyfriend. He was the last one to see her. She said she was going over to spend the night at a friend's house. The friend said that she never made it. She didn't even know about it. The boyfriend went and quit his job that morning, drove to another town. They found child porn on that computer. Mom and boyfriend took polygraphs. They failed them both. They found all kinds of true crime, child, um, child material, you know, just S&M stuff in their room. That house has been torn down. But they found all that stuff in the house, and the boyfriend hung on to his innocence that he didn't do anything. He didn't know what happened to her. They had a New Year's Eve party. She went missing the 26th of December, the day after Christmas. If you want to know more about it, there's YouTube videos. It's called Haley Dunn. Her name is Haley Dunn. She was broadcast. The parents were broadcast on Nancy Grace. It's an interesting case. There's a lot of information on it. Supposedly, she was sold to a drug dealer for the amount that the mom owed for drugs. Supposedly, she was going with the mom to a strip club, and while the mom danced, just wild. She was supposedly had her head shaved before they killed her, quote unquote. They buried her in a cooler, an igloo. They found her in a duffel bag or something of that nature. I mean, just awful stuff. Just awful stuff. This is the forensic files type shit. You know, if you like that show, or investigative discovery ID channel, which, you know, I watch all that stuff too. But it's that kind of stuff. So if you want to know more about it, her name is Haley, Hailey Dunn, Dunn. The mom's name is Billie, Billie Dunn. Go check it out. And on my next live, maybe we can discuss it. Let me know what you think. Well, I'm about to get off here. Once again, I thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all the interaction. I think my next live is going to be on Friday because I'm going out of town. I don't know if I'm going to do one on Friday. If not, next Monday or Tuesday will be my next live. So until I see you guys again, keep on keeping on and stay safe out there. And be mindful of your surroundings. Take care of your families. And I'm not saying be untrusting of everybody. Just be very vigilant of your surroundings. Make sure you're not distracted when you're doing things. And make sure that you take mental notes of your surroundings, because you don't know if you could help somebody else if there's ever a crime around you. Well, you guys have a good night. This is 12 Gauge, and I'm heading out of here. Maestro, cue the music.